So, the Chargers got Jimmy Harbaugh as their coach, huh? That might legitimately be the biggest win they've ever had as a franchise. Well, for surely since drafting Justin Herbert, but like, that's actually big. And like I said before, you know, I'm not really an avid college ball watcher, but from bouncing in and out of it throughout the years and having a brother who's obsessed with it, I know that this guy is one of the greatest of all time. Funny because I have a brother who loves him and a friend who calls him a car salesman, so I really don't, I'm kind of torn, but obviously if you've had the success Jim has had, there's gonna be some hype around you. You just gotta make sure you're not Urban Meyer. Anyway, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to another video and welcome to every running back's regular season review. Couple of plugs as always. Don't forget to use code WyattzWorld on G Fuel or Prize Picks. You can save yourself a discount on any G Fuel products or match up to $100 of your first deposit. Quick reminder, if you haven't heard, there's a CMC free square where all he needs is 1 yard on Sunday for the entry to win. Also, I tried another basketball entry. I won another $100. I'm telling you, basketball might be the way to go. It is easy. Knock on wood. Anyway, always play responsibly and let's get into the video. Alright, so here we are at today's list, and it's gonna start off very similar to the other ones. At the top, we've got the running backs who are phenomenal. Under that, we've got the running backs who are above average. In the middle, we've got the running backs who I think are solid. Towards the bottom, we've got the running backs who are serviceable. And at the very bottom, we've got the running backs who I think are flat out garbage. With that being said, let's get started with Devon Achane, I think is how you say that name properly. We're gonna go ahead and give him an above average. He had like 800 yards and almost averaged 8 yards a carry. He also had like 8 touchdowns too, and that's not even looking at his receiving. Unfortunately, he did battle a couple injuries, and we gotta hope that's not gonna be a permanent thing in his career going forward, because if he gets to play an entire season, we might see something truly special. Khalil Herbert, he was solid, another guy who missed some time. I actually thought he was really good going into this year. I still think he's fine, but I don't think he's that special anymore. Up next, we got Joe Mixon. It's another guy that I think is just solid now. I don't think he's that good anymore. He did have 1,000 yards, he had 9 touchdowns. I think he averaged 4 yards a carry. You know, he's still productive. It's just I feel like he's really hit or miss, and he's not that explosive anymore. He's pretty slow to get running, it seems to me. Now moving on, we got Javonte Williams. Sadly, he's going down to serviceable. I actually forgot about him completely until I looked him up, and then yeah, after I saw how he did this year, he was not good. Didn't rush for 100 yards a single time in a game, only had 3 touchdowns, only averaged 3.5 yards a carry opposed to his usual 4.5. I know he's coming off of an Achilles injury, but I'm just saying he didn't do that well. Up next, we got Jaleel McLaughlin. You know, he actually outperformed Javonte real well, but I'm just not sold that he is really anything special either. I'm just gonna say serviceable for him as well. Now moving on, we got Jerome Ford, and this guy is Dante Foreman. He's solid. He is literally Dante Foreman. He'll get you 9 carries for 20 yards or 9 carries for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Pretty good receiving bag. He did have a couple receiving touchdowns, but he is inconsistent, man. Now we got Rachaad White. He gets a solid. He ran for 990. He caught for 500. I know his running isn't the most productive thing ever, but to be fair, I think his O-line was kind of banged up this year too anyway. I don't think he is that bad anymore. He might be the least explosive guy I've ever seen. I will say that. James Conner, above average. Like I was just saying, this guy just had a career high in production and in yards, and nobody's talking about it. Also an extremely underrated pass catcher. He's a guy that you're gonna throw a ball to in an oh shit moment, and then you're gonna say oh shit again when he catches it with one hand and keeps running down the field. Austin Eckler. I'm sorry, this might be the biggest drastic turnaround ever, but he gets a garbage from me. I still think he's a good guy, but he was bad. This year he had games where he had 14 carries for 27 yards, 14 carries for 45, 15 carries for 29, 14 carries for 47. These are all in a row, by the way. In December, he had games where he had 14 carries for 18 yards and 5 carries for 9 yards. Or his last game of the year where he had 10 carries for 11 yards. He was awful. Pacheco, above average. I think he's an exceptional running back who plays on a team that puts running second in their game plan, obviously. Now we got JT. Above average. He's not going to go in phenomenal again yet, even though he was cranking it up at the end of the year, but it took him a while to get started. However, next year I expect to see the old-fashioned JT back. He's still young. Zach Moss. He definitely deserves a solid. When JT was out, he carried. He was one of the top running backs in the league for a while, rushing yard-wise. Obviously, his production was lost when he lost his job, but he gets a solid from me, man. He held his own. Now we got Antonio Gibson. I mean, does he even count as a running back anymore? He had 48 receptions and 65 carries this year. Like, it's almost a 50-50 ratio. Serviceable. Brian Robinson, he gets a solid from me. Just talked about him in my NFL awards. He proved me wrong. He didn't do anything exceptionally great, but 700 yards, good average, 5 rushing touchdowns, plus all the receiving he had. Like, he had a good performance this season. James Cook, let me explain my positioning on this. I'm giving him a phenomenal. For one, rushing this year was fucking lousy, okay? Nobody's gonna deny that. Like, from the entire league, go look at the top 5 this year from the last 5. Like, it's just low. 2, this year, he was one of the best in the league. He finished 4th in rushing yards at 1,122, averaged 4.7 yards a carry, which is 7th most for running backs, and also caught for 445 yards and 4 touchdowns on top of that. Now, I get it, you know, he has ball security issues. He could have scored more touchdowns, but if you're a Bills fan especially, like, this guy is young Dalvin Cook. He is literally elite. Next, we got Rico Dowdwell, or however the hell you say it. Serviceable. I didn't get to see him play, but he didn't look that bad. Miles Sanders, you get a garbage, buddy. 1 touchdown, like 400 yards. I think he averaged 3 yards a carry. And didn't he get paid $25 million for like 4 years to do this? Now we got Rashawn Johnson. To be honest, he actually didn't look that bad. I want to see him play more, so I'm going to give him serviceable, but he kind of looked good. Now we got Chase Brown. They look alike to me. Again, serviceable. I didn't get to see, he didn't really do much. I didn't get to see him play much, but I'm not going to give him a garbage. Now we got Tony Pollard, and I hate using this word, but I have to. He was so mid. 1,000 yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, 0 receiving touchdowns. Like, I talked him up so much. I thought he was going to be one of the best in the league. Now we've got Tajay Spears, another guy that I'm just going to give serviceable to. Even though he didn't look that bad, it's just, you're not getting #1 reps. I can't act like you are a #1 and you're going to perform like one. Christian McCaffrey, obviously phenomenal, the best. Probably should get a tier of his own. Kenneth Gainwell, serviceable. Don't think I heard his name once. DeAndre Swift, I'm giving him an above average. I think he is a good running back. People like to shit on him. He did slow down at the end of the year, but man, I think he's quick. He can catch. He can juke. I really don't think he should have ever left the Lions. Now we got Bijan, and I'm actually throwing him in phenomenal. Dude, under Arthur Smith, a guy who didn't want him to succeed, he ran for 976, 4 touchdowns, 4.5 yards a carry, and then caught for 487 off of 58 receptions and 4 more touchdowns. With the right coach, this guy's gonna explode. Algier, serviceable. I don't think he's that bad, but he's really hit or miss, and he took a lot away from Bijan, so he's gonna get held down from me for that too, even though it's not his fault. Saquon Barkley, he gets a solid this year. He wasn't all that good. Under 1,000 yards, not very good on the average. I think he only had 6 touchdowns. He also caught for 280 and 4 touchdowns. I'm not saying he is a bad running back. I'm just saying this year wasn't his best. Now we got Travis Etienne. I'm going to get ripped a little bit, but I think he's a little overrated. I'm only going to give him solid. He did have 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns, but he also had multiple games where he would have double-digit carries for under 60 yards and hang a donut. He did have a couple good games, but otherwise it seemed like a lot of goal line stands or, you know, an occasional breakout touchdown. Now we got Breece Hall. Again, solid. I think he's very good, but guys, from October 29th through December 17th, that's 8 weeks. He didn't have a rushing touchdown or rush for over 50 yards. Like, what are you gonna say to that? David Montgomery, solid as well. I think he had a lot of touchdowns. He had a lot of yards, but I also think Jahmyr Gibbs, who we'll talk about in a little bit, is far better than him. I think David's like a Latavius Murray kind of, you know, more of a battering ram than anything. Dameon Pierce, absolutely garbage. Now we got Jahmyr Gibbs. He gets an above average. 1 less rushing touchdown than David, a couple less rushing yards, but he also caught for 300 receiving yards and a touchdown. This is a guy that if you watch versus David Montgomery, you're going to see him twisting and turning. You're going to see him breaking ankles. You're going to see an explosive pop right out the gate. David's more of just a wave, a battering ram that's going to move and push. Now we got Aaron Jones. At the end of the year, he came back. The last 5 weeks, and I know 2 of them, I guess, were including playoff games, he ran for over 100 yards and at minimum averaged 5 yards a blast. Missed a ton of time this year, but he's still as good as he always has been. Chuba Hubbard, I hate his guts. I think he's so horrible, but I'm gonna give him a serviceable just because he did better than Miles Sanders, and he deserves to be acknowledged for that. Alexander Madison, garbage. Zeke, I think he's trash too. I want nothing to do with Zeke. He might have had a good game or 2 this year, but I still think he's ass. Ramondre Stevenson, I'm gonna give him serviceable. I still think he's better than that. This was just a weird year for him and the Patriots in general, and like I said, he was at least productive when he played. Zeke really wasn't. Now we got Raheem Mostert. Mostert, I gotta give him the phenomenal. He only might have caught for like 120 some yards, and he only ran for just over 1,000, but this guy had over 20 total touchdowns, and realistically, it was just kind of his opportunities, I think, that were more so taken away from him with the incorporation of A-Chain. You couldn't shut him down in the end zone for a while, and they weren't just tush pushes. Now we got Josh Jacobs. He was ass this year for his little holdout that he did, and for the fact that Zamir White, his backup, was flat out better than him. He was ass. He was garbage. Kyron Williams, phenomenal. He was one of the greatest specimens I've ever laid my eyes on. 1,144 yards, 12 touchdowns, 5 yards a carry. That's Nick Chubb there. Now we got Kenneth Walker, and I'm gonna say this for the third time, and this is me. I think I overrated him slightly. I think he's solid. I think that deep down, he's great, but this year, had a lot of games where he didn't do jack shit. Gus the Bus, he gets a solid from me. Had a lot of touchdowns fed to him, but this guy is a very powerful running back. Like, it's his power that gets him in the end zone. Kamara, he gets a solid. He's slowed down too in both his rushing and receiving, it seemed like, but he was still right around 1,000 yards total, which you're not gonna complain about, and a handful of touchdowns. Zach Charbonnet, serviceable. I don't have much to say about him. Now we got Najee Harris, still just as solid, and that's because we'll talk about Jalen Warren here in a sec. Actually, we can talk about them both, I guess. They're both gonna get a solid, Najee and Jalen. I don't think Najee's bad anymore, but if you look at their attempts, like, Jalen Warren was way more productive than Najee. And he also caught for like double, but I'm not gonna give him the one up over Najee or anything. I think they're both decent running backs. Najee probably got a little bit more power behind him. Jalen's a little bit more shifty, but I think it's just a good 1-2 combo to have. Now we got Devin Singletary. He is the most solid and consistent running back in the history of the NFL. Probably not the history, but right now. I'm not saying he's the best, I'm saying consistent. Go look at every year. He has right around the same amount of rushing yards, receptions, rushing touchdown average, everything. He is Mr. Consistent. Derrick Henry, phenomenal. Still the king, over 1,100 yards, like 12 touchdowns, and the guy's 30. And ending down here with Ty Chandler, he actually gets a solid, because when he played, I think he did really good, and then he got hurt. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen, for my review of every single running back's regular season. All right, everybody, and that is going to be all for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you did and you want to show support, you guys already know what to do, and turn on that bell because I try to post every single weekday. However, with everything I just said, I'm going to get this edited so you guys can watch it on time. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your Thursday, and as always, I will see you in the next video.